Picture this. You're walking down a Chicago street in 1925, and you see a short, stocky man in an expensive suit stepping out of a bulletproof Cadillac. He's got a warm smile, tips his hat to the ladies, and hands out $20 bills to kids on the street. The same man who just bought ice cream for a group of children also ordered the execution of 7 people that morning. This wasn't some Hollywood villain. This was Al Capone, and he was very, very real. Behind the legend of Scarface was a complex human being who loved his family, cried at movies, and genuinely believed he was helping his community. Yet this same man built his fortune on violence and fear. How do we understand someone so contradictory? How did a mama's boy from Brooklyn become America's most feared gangster? And what can his story teach us about the thin line between ambition and destruction? Let's dive into the very human story of Al Capone. Body Section 1. The boy behind the legend. 2 minutes. Before Al Capone became a legend, he was just Alphonse, a chunky kid with big dreams growing up in a cramped Brooklyn apartment. Born on January 17, 1899, he was one of 9 children, crammed into a few rooms with his parents, Gabriele and Teresa. His father wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was a hardworking barber who cut hair for 10 cents. His mother, Teresa, was a devout Catholic who spent her days sewing to help make ends meet. They had immigrated from Italy with hopes of giving their children better lives. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that their 4th son would become America's most notorious criminal. Young Al wasn't born evil. Teachers described him as bright, but easily frustrated. He had a quick temper, sure, but he also had a protective streak, especially when it came to his younger siblings. He'd walk his little sister to school every day and beat up kids who picked on his brothers. The turning point came when Al was just 14. A teacher hit him, and he hit back hard. In 1913, hitting a teacher was unforgivable. Al was expelled and never went back to school. Years later, he'd say this was his biggest regret. "I should have kept my mouth shut and my hands to myself," he once told a reporter. Maybe things would have been different, but they weren't different. With no education and few options, Al found himself drawn to the neighborhood gangs. The James Street Gang gave him something his chaotic home life couldn't: respect, money, and a sense of belonging. Johnny Torrio, who would later become his mentor, saw something special in the teenager. Torrio later said, "Al had this way about him. People wanted to follow him, even when they knew following him might get them killed." The famous scars came from a stupid mistake. Working as a bouncer, Al made a crude comment about a woman's appearance, not knowing she was connected to a dangerous man. Frank Galluccio slashed his face with a knife, leaving 3 deep scars that would mark him for life. Al was embarrassed by those scars and would always sit with the scarred side of his face away from cameras. Body. Section 2. Love, Marriage, and Chicago. 2 minutes. In 1918, something unexpected happened. Al Capone fell in love. Mae Josephine Coughlin was an Irish-American girl from a respectable middle-class family. She was blonde, beautiful, and completely different from the rough crowd Al ran with. Their friends couldn't understand what she saw in the scarred street tough, but Mae saw something others missed: Al's capacity for genuine affection and loyalty. When Mae became pregnant, Al did something that surprised everyone. He married her. On December 30, 1918, 19-year-old Al Capone became a husband. A few weeks later, he became a father to Albert Francis Sonny Capone. For a brief moment, it seemed like Al might choose a different path. But legitimate work didn't pay enough to support his growing family the way Al wanted. When Johnny Torrio invited him to Chicago in 1919, Al saw it as his chance to give May and Sonny the life he'd never had. "I want my boy to have everything," he told May. "Everything I never got." Chicago in 1920 wasn't just a city, it was an opportunity wrapped in chaos. When Prohibition began, Al quickly realized this wasn't just about making money. This was about building something lasting, something that would secure his family's future forever. Al approached bootlegging like a businessman, not a thug. He studied supply chains, negotiated with suppliers, and treated his customers with respect. His speakeasies weren't just places to drink, they were entertainment destinations with live music, good food, and a safe atmosphere. "I'm not in the business of hurting people," he'd tell his men. "I'm in the business of making people happy." When Torrio was nearly killed in an assassination attempt in 1925, he handed control to Al with